Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the very first Where Do We Go From Here, a virtual event series for GAYTIMES Plus members. My name's Lewis Corner, and I'm the editorial director of GAYTIMES, and we're really happy to be bringing this event to you today, which is going to be the first in a new series, obviously titled Where Do We Go From Here, which will be tackling the big questions within our community, the big topics, however broad across social issues, politics, culture. And we're really excited to be kicking it off today with you all. And where better to start than with the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden, and what his presidency means for LGBTQ people living in the United States, but also across the whole world. And we're really, really fortunate to have Adam Eli with us today, who will be moderating the conversation. Adam is a friend of GAYTIMES, and he's an incredible community organizer and author. And Adam will be joined by Edafe Okporo, who is an activist and writer, and Giselle, who's an author, artist, and activist. And yeah, we're really, really excited for today's conversation with these three incredible community trailblazers. So I'd like to pass it over to Adam, who will get the conversation started.
Hi, everyone. How's it going? Adam Eli here. I am thrilled to be joined by Hope and Edafe. I believe that they are two leaders on the forefront of queer activism in America in a really, really powerful way. And so I really want them to speak for themselves. So let's just dive right in. So the day that Biden was announced as president, we didn't know that he was going to be announced as president. It came as a surprise. Like, we knew it was going to happen, but we didn't know when. And on that day, at first, I was really happy. I went to Washington Square Park, but then I got really sad. And I sort of felt like, I'm happy that this happened. I'm happy that it's starting to be over, but I'm sad that it happened at all. And so, Hope, we'll go to you first. I'm wondering, how did you feel 2 Saturdays ago? And how do you feel now?
Honestly, I think for me, because, and I'm not sure how many people, all over the world understand the complexities of this entire election. But for me, I felt like there was a slight weight lifted. It reminded me of what it felt like to live in America that actually stood for all people and that actually sought to make sure that we all had a safe space. But I think as a Black woman, outside of knowing that, we had a president that was going to be here and stand up for all people and has made a promise to be here and stand up for all people, looking and seeing the first Black woman vice president ever, was amazing for me. And it was one of those things that as a woman of leadership and power, and as a woman who seeks to empower youth and trans youth and LGBT queer and non-binary youth, who, especially those who identify on a femme spectrum, it was one of the most amazing things to know that there was representation, to know that it wasn't a patriarchy, and that this next 4 years is not going to be led by white men under the voices and under the thoughts and opinions and the leadership ideals of white men. And that filled me with a lot of emotion and joy, as I'm pretty sure it filled a lot of women and femmes and non-binary folk with joy. And it filled me with extra joy to know that there was once again somebody who was of color, who understands Black struggle, who understands Asian and Indian struggle as well. To know that we were going to be represented in the fullness of ourselves, in the fullness of what it means to be women and what it means to be people of color, but also that we were going to be backed by a white man who has shown and proven that he is willing to do the work to be on the right side of history. And I'm still in awe. I'm still processing, but I'm extremely happy.
As always, beautifully said. I can only imagine. And Edafe, to you, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but you arrived, you came to America from Nigeria 10 days, I think, before the 2016 election, which means that you've really only lived in America under the 45th president. And so I'm wondering, first of all, as a queer immigrant asylum seeker, I'm wondering, what was that experience like for you, and how are you feeling?
Thank you, Adam. I think Hope said it beautifully, but something I think everybody should know is that outside America, everybody view this country as the beacon of hope, the place where people who are stressed or who are experiencing difficulties come to and feel like they are represented. The Statue of Liberty, all these things means a lot to even people outside America compared to people in America. So when I came to the airport 10 days to the election, I saw Trump, His Majesty, holding a protest, and people were screaming, Mexico, we pay for the war, do that war. I was like, is this America? This wasn't the country I've heard about almost my entire life. And the last 4 years, as an activist from my home country fighting for gay rights, I thought that coming to America would be an opportunity for me to live a different life, like really feel like I'm a gay person, I can fall in love, I could get married. But it didn't really feel like that. The last 4 years, instead of me rebuilding my life as a new immigrant, I've been trapped in this circle of trying to fight systemic injustice against trans people, against LGBTQ people that are trying to come to America, that there's one new legislation after another that is barring us from being able to enjoy the promise America gave to us. And secondly, as a Black person, I fled gay violence and I came to America to see a president that supports white supremacy made me realize that I am a Black person and I'm not welcome here. It has really been traumatic. And I think that this will be a traumatic experience for the rest of my life because I came under His Majesty. And His Majesty is not just only a narcissist, he wants to destroy everything that I am: a gay, a Black, a refugee, a Christian. Is just attacking everything. So when the election result was called, I was in my kitchen doing some schoolwork and I heard people screaming. And I ran out and I saw people screaming. I didn't know how to feel because I've never seen another president in this country. I've only seen the Trump presidency. So I'm beginning to meet the expectation of what life would be under a new president, but His Majesty is still holding down power. So I'm hoping that all these things will be over soon and we can move on with our lives.
Wow, Edafe, as always, that was so beautifully said, and also you offer such a unique perspective that I think is vital and often missing from the conversation. So thank you for sharing that. And on the idea of what the president, I think you both spoke about the idea of what the president can be. We got some questions from the Gay Times Plus community members, and one of them, which I want to direct to Hope, is: do you think, of course, with Pete Buttigieg and his progress in this race, or in the primaries, do you think the audience wants to know, Hope, do you think that America is ready for a gay president?
I think that America has been ready for a gay president, right? And I'm pretty sure that unbeknownst to us, we might have had a gay president. What America is not ready for is the truth and the ability that someone's sexuality does not dictate whether or not they're going to be able to lead, just like someone's gender does not dictate whether or not they're going to be able to be a great leader. I think that America has been ready for truth, right? And because America has been ready for truth, and because America has been ready for somebody who lives in full transparency and who is going to be as honest as they can possibly be as an American civil leader, we've been ready for an LGBT president. We've been ready for a gay president. We've been ready for a trans president. It's the idea of not making that the entirety of their existence. I think that when we do talk about folks like Pete Buttigieg, we're talking about the idea that here was a man who had accolades, who had done work, who had put himself through the ringer in all of these other ways, and was still, sort of boiled down to the gay running mate, the gay, candidate person. And I think that what America has to do before we are even worthy of having somebody who is going to bring their full transparency and their full self to the presidential space, is we need to understand that life moves forward regardless of who people sleep with. Life moves forward regardless of the chromosomes that folks were born with or the body parts that, you know, people have between their legs. I think that what America is not ready for, and what a lot of us have to be honest about, is America is not ready for radical truth and radical change in a way that is going to force us to see ourselves, right? When I think about the things that Edafe was talking about, when you are an immigrant from other countries, and when I talk to my friends that are from other countries, there is this sense of undeniable hope. There is this sense of, I cannot wait to go to America to be able to be my best self and live the best life that I can possibly live. And I think that a lot of Americans are hell-bent on the idea of living this life that has been painted for us based off of the way that we fit into this social order. So based off of being a Black trans woman, this is the best quality of life that I can be afforded. Being a white gay man, this is the best quality of life that I can be afforded. Being an immigrant woman from Taiwan, this is the best quality of life that I can afford. And I think what we as Americans have to do is be able to be honest about the idea that people get to choose how their life turns out by basic rights and American freedoms. It doesn't matter whether our president is trans, gay, lesbian, bisexual, or intersex. What really matters is if they're going to truly be here for the American people and not just sell the American dream, but actually be someone that helps people live the American dream outside of the boxes that we've already placed folks in.
She's true. That's powerful.
It's really, really powerful and really, really beautiful. And I think that speaks, again, I think this is on tone where another question that we had from the audience, Edafe, and Hope, I'm going to ask you the same question right after I ask Edafe, is what are you hopeful about for the Biden administration? What do you want to see?
Thank you, Adam. What Hope just said, if I can translate that, but I can't, that's like very powerful. We need a leadership that will speak truth to power. Leadership in the past has been defined by characteristics of individuals, but that is like 1960th century way of leading, whereby I have a settlement and I want to take the other settlement. We have more power. We need a leader that can motivate us to go and fight them. But what COVID-19 has taught us is that leadership is not based on individual characteristics. It's not whether you are charismatic or not, or you are outspoken. Leadership is being able to lead a team to achieve a goal. Countries that are led by women under this pandemic, they perform better than countries that are led by men. Businesses that are run by Black people, small businesses, they survive more than big businesses that are run by white people. So what is leadership telling us? Can we have somebody that can work together with us as a team to achieve a goal? And that is what I expect from the Biden administration. Grassroots organizing is so underrated, but grassroots organizing is the foundation of our democracy. So if Biden did not listen to us that are doing the grassroots work of pushing the stereotype about Black people, about immigrants, about LGBTQ people, about gender, if these issues are not addressed systematically, we will remain where we are and we will not be able to motivate the voters to come out in the same number they did again. So I would hope that the first 100 days of his administration, he can be able to implement changes that will enable these young voters, these minority voters, Jews, Christians, this coalition that came together to vote for him, to say that indeed my vote is worth it. Because after the first 100 days, it becomes very tight, it becomes very bureaucratic and so on. So I hope that he can be able to bring a coalition that will work together, and his administration should be able to bring more Black leaders, more LGBTQ leaders, reflect the kind of leadership we haven't seen in Washington since time immemorial. If we want to create change, we need to bring people that are going to be affected by that change to reflect in our leadership. That is my hope.
That was so so beautifully said. And just listening to you gives me such hope. And
Thank you.
I cannot wait for your book. I'm going to plug Edafe. Edafe recently got a major book deal at Simon and Schuster, and I don't know when that book comes out, but it was announced like a week or so ago. And Edafe, I'm so excited for that. Hope, I'd love to ask you the same question. What are you hopeful for from the Biden administration? What will you be looking to hold them accountable for, et cetera?
You know, I honestly want to quote 3LW, promises, promises, promises. You know, like there were a lot of promises that were made, and I want to hold them accountable, and I'm going to be holding them accountable. If you know anything about the way that I view activism, I'm going to be holding them accountable for all of the things that they said that they would be able to do, same as Edafe, within that 100 days. Within that 100 days, our president-elect has made some very tall orders. And while I'm not going to, you know, use syntax to cut him and Kamala down, what I am going to do is see where the groundwork lies. I think that what I want to see is, though I know you're not going to be able to accomplish all of these things, it will be amazing if you did. But though I know you're not going to be able to accomplish all of these things, I want to see the groundwork. Where did you start working on this LGBT redemption plan? Where did you start working on, you know, the better housing situation for trans women? Where did you start working on the better HUD and housing situation for migrant workers, for Black folk, and for Indigenous people who have been left out of those struggles for years? I want to see what you're doing as far as protections for women in the workplace. I want to see the ways in which you're going to bring in people that are reflective of all of these groups of folks that you've promised to be there for and stand by. And then also, I'm going to be holding Kamala accountable for being the voice, right? I think that this is a prime example of when Black folks say, we're never in the room, we're never at those tables, we're never at those conversations. It's a tall order for Kamala to fill, and it is almost unfair to ask her to fill it by herself. However, it is going to be, we are literally solely going to be looking at Kamala not only to be the voice of women in that space, but to be the voice of people of color in that space. We're going to need you to remind him who his running mate is. We're going to need you to constantly remind him of the things that he's not only promised us, but promised you and promised your family and promised the, you know, the folks who are going to either benefit or be harmed by the things that your running mate has the capabilities of approving, putting on the table, fighting for. And so I think for me, a lot of the things that I want to see are going to have to, I'm going to have to definitely second what Edafe said, is true and utter and pure, unadulterated leadership. I don't want to see any more people that are going to be able to be pushed and pulled by the administration or by, you know, the Supreme Court and all of these other people down in all of these other decision-making spaces. You know, like we all know that the president doesn't get the final say-so, right? And so when it comes down the funnel, when these things that we know are going to be detrimental for American people get there, I want a president and a vice president who are going to say, no, that is crap. Let's start back over. We're going to propose it again. And we're going to propose it again until we come to a compromise. But we're not just going to allow you to say no to us and to the American people. And as long as I get that, I think I'll be satisfied.
Wow. Again, so powerful, both of you. So unfortunately, as queer advocates, we know that just because a new president with a strong history of LGBT rights is in the White House, that does not mean that our work is done. That does not mean that queer suffering is over. And that certainly does not mean that movement work is done. So I would love to hear a little bit about, you know, what you're doing right now. Also, specifically to Edafe, one is, I know that there is a big protest planned for November 21st. I would love to hear about that. And also, what can American queer people that genuinely care about queer refugees, immigrants, and asylum seekers, what can they do to help and be of service?
Thank you, Adam. First of all, love is not only for Americans, it's for all LGBTQ people. If you're a gay person in America, you can't travel with your partner to Russia. If you're a gay employee of Facebook, Google, or Amazon, you cannot be transferred to Nigeria if you are married because your marriage will not be recognized, not because of anything, just because you are gay. Equality of LGBTQ people cannot be achieved until gay rights becomes a human right in every country and every place across the world. When racial inequality and slavery was ended in America, Black people still suffer oppression until colonialism was ended. This is the fight that gay people have before them. Since gay marriage has been approved and upheld by the Supreme Court, it doesn't mean that our fight is over. This is just the beginning of our fight. One issue I have with the gay community is like every other community. You don't fund grassroots because you want results, but you are ready to donate or fund venture back a business. You can wait 12 years before they make their first ever profit. Amazon took 6 years to make its first profit for its stakeholders. LGBTQ community needs to fund grassroots organizations so they can do the work of creating systemic change. Not HROC, sorry to call them out. Not GLAD, sorry to call them out. Not Glisten. Those organizations are bureaucratic organizations. They don't create change. Put your money where your mouth is, number one. Number two, educate yourself about the issues that LGBTQ people face globally, even in Europe, Poland, Russia, in Central America. Trans people cannot change their birth certificate. When they come to America, they cannot be able to live in their true self. And this is the United States of America. Conversion therapy is still an issue in more than 15 states in America. So we don't have equality yet if some of us cannot live in their true self. Trans people don't have access to shelter. So I will stop there. There's a lot you can do. I don't want to overwhelm you. First, put your money somewhere that involves creating change grassroots. Second, educate yourself. And the protest we are doing is for LGBTQ migrants. I came here as a gay migrant. If there was no law like gay marriage, I couldn't have come to America. Today, LGBTQ people are coming to America and they are asked to remain in Mexico. There's high rate of rape, kidnap of trans people. Mexicans are beating immigrants in shelters in Tijuana. More than 116 cases of rape and kidnap and torture of trans people. These are our brothers, our sisters. If we want to protect LGBTQ people, we have to stand up for LGBTQ migrants. And this is not the time for cis-pack, beautiful pictures on Instagram. Tell me how beautiful your life is. You have adopted children and everything. Trans people fought for you to have that right, and you need to fight back for people. And if you can't be there in person, your money can do it. And we should stop being uncomfortable that we don't want to talk about this issue. It's too heavy. If we stop talking about heavy issue, there will be no right for gay people at all. So I want to encourage people. The conversation does not end online. Follow activists that are doing the work. Put your money in grassroots activism. This is where systemic change has always happened. Forget about all these bureaucratic organizations you are hearing about. They do nothing. I have worked for USAID, one of the largest funded organizations by American government in West Africa. And gay people were still dying of HIV. It's grassroots organizations that are providing condom, lubricant, educating people. So I will encourage you, educate yourself, Google which are the trans-led and Black-led and gay-led grassroots organizations that are around me and give them money.
Wow.
So
Wow.
So beautifully said. And Hope, I'm going to ask you the same question, which is, what are you working on right now? Just because Joe Biden is president does not mean that transphobia or racism goes away. So how can queer people that are not trans and that are not Black, how can they show up for you and the queer community?
First and foremost, I want to really give space for people to sit on what they just said. Oftentimes in spaces, I am the person that has to make those very candid and unfiltered statements. And I've never no matter what the panel, no matter who the person, have been able to feel like I was going to be backed by some of my panelists, and to know that a fellow panelist is out here reminding folks of those same things is both amazing and very emotional for me to an extent. What I think is exactly what Edafe thinks. There are so many people that are not doing their research when they're giving funding to these organizations such as HRC, such as GLAAD, GLSEN, and all of these majorly funded organizations that are literally throwing balls for Beyonce and Jay-Z and inviting Naomi Campbell to come and get an award for being an ally, when you have trans people who are literally championing ourselves, right? You have folks that are doing grassroots work, and yet you're paying millions and thousands of dollars to fly Beyonce and Jay-Z to a hotel that they could buy in the middle of a city to say thank you for your contribution to the divahood, and I just think that that's ridiculous. The things that we are doing as Black trans women in the communities, literally buying homes with our own money to make sure that during this sheltering crisis that trans women have somewhere to literally rest our heads. We should not have to literally be in spaces where we're using our corporate money, where we're working beyond, the brink of our body's capacity, to then turn around and put that money back into things that grassroots people are throwing millions of dollars at these bureaucratic organizations to do, and then that money doesn't come back to us. There are thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars that are being donated to all of these organizations specifically to help Black trans women. And none of that money is coming to us. We don't see any of that. None of that work is being done on a surface level or even at a bottom level, grassroots level. And half of these organizations won't even hire Black trans women. And if they do, they hire us to tokenize us and don't trust our ability to actually do the job that we've been hired for. And so a lot of the work that I'm doing is I'm training the youth in leadership. I'm training the youth and being able to use your voice. I'm training the youth and being able to start your own podcast and being able to write your own articles and being able to figure out how to freelance and being able to figure out what it is that you can do to create your own sort of voice in the media and your own sort of voice out here, because honestly, the future is media. And so if you want to get people's attention, you have to know how to use media as a grassroots way of function to be able to hold people accountable for the things that they're not doing. There's so much that we can go on and on about. Edafe is absolutely right. There are so many things that we could talk about that need to be done. But at a base level, it is about learning who to put your trust in and learning who to invest your money in. Don't give money to rich white gay men expecting them to be okay with then turning around to give that money to the people that you actually mean it for. Just give it to the people that you mean it for. That way you don't have to worry about it. Stop hiring trans people and then not trusting our abilities to do the jobs that we've been hired for. Stop making excuses for reasons why you cannot show up for us and then turning around and donating millions of dollars to other people who also don't show up for us. There has to be a change in the ways in which folks are truly pulling their allyship card. And it has to start with the idea of helping the people who are the most marginalized, because when you help the most marginalized people free themselves, everyone else benefits from all of those things and all of that work. So once again, support the grassroots work, give the money to the people that you actually mean it for. Stop trusting these major bureaucratic organizations to help out the underdog, because what they want to do is continue to be those organizations so that they can continue to get that funding. And do your research. Figure out who is actually doing the work in the community and amplify, amplify, amplify.
So beautifully said, both of you. So for our last question, because we are running out of time, the thing I want to ask you both is to acknowledge my privilege here as a white, cis, American-born person. And I want to say to the two of you, both I'm going to ask you the same question, which is, some like either closing thoughts, or is there a question that I didn't ask you that you wish that I had, or anything else that you want to say? Just some like space that you can take or not, as sort of like final thoughts, or maybe things we didn't get to touch on that you think are important for this conversation.
Adam, I want to say that I want to say to you, Adam, I told you this in one of our Instagram live that even though you have privilege, the way you use your privilege to lift up members of the community that need to be heard makes your privilege worthy of a privilege. And that is my encouragement to other cisgender gay men, white or not. If you have any form of privilege, it will be a disservice to the community if you think that I can do it, they can also do it. So I think that it's not a bad thing to have a privilege, but it's also good to recognize how best to help people who don't have access to the places you have for them to be able to get there. That's what I'll say.
Thank you, Edafe. That means a lot. Hope?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that for all of the folks, not just for, white gay men out there who benefit from privilege, but for all men, gay, straight, indifferent, allies, for all of those men who have the privilege of being men, for white women who have the privilege of being white women, for women who have the privilege of not being trans, right? I think that it's going to be important that at every turn, at every chance that you have, that you acknowledge not only the privilege that you have, but the ways in which you can use that privilege to ensure that the people that you love and the people that you support are, in turn supported. Adam, you've done an amazing job for free, right? You've done an amazing job for free at offering your privilege up in ways that have been beneficial to both you because you get to learn, and the people who you are trying to amplify. And you've done so in the most basic ways, allowing people space on your platform, allowing people to take over your platform, allowing people to, be seen, and sharing the information that you get with people on a regular basis. And I think that if a lot more cisgender people, whether you're an ally or a part of the community, took that approach, folks wouldn't be able to use the excuse about not knowing what's happening in the community anymore because they would be well educated, right? And we could call them out on that because it's like, no, you follow Adam and we saw Adam post this 3 times this week. I know you knew about it. You just didn't, right? Being able to hold people accountable for those things are going to be really important, and you do a really good job at that. So thank you.
Well, thank you. That's so nice. Thank you so much. And I just want to thank you both so much for what you I just want to thank you both so much for all of the work that you do that makes the world a better and safer place for queer people. And thank you so much for your time. I'm looking forward to actively working with you and GAYTIMES to make sure that this presidency, that this next 4 years, is a hallmark and golden era of queer rights.
Thank you.
Thank you.